Many, many years ago, in a land filled up with snow, there were a king and queen who ruled their beloved kingdom called Liverpool. The couple was soon blessed with a son, of whom they called Asterion. The land rejoiced without care when they knew there was an heir to the throne of their beloved town. But that was when everything started turning down. Asterion was taken just a few years after his birth by the sorcerer called Marquez Shuttler. The kingdom was heartbroken and fell into peril, for it went on for weeks without word from the castle. Now we take our tale to another part of the realm, where there lived an orphan girl called Wilhelm. Wilhelm heard of the horrible thing that had happened and made it her goal to save the young prince and heal the blackened hearts of those around her under the snow, so she decided that training camp was where she needed to go. Wilhelm spent the years of her youth training her body and becoming a sleuth, so she could find out where Shuttler had taken the Prince of Liverpool, who was held captive from the maiden. She encountered a few mishaps over the years, but just worked harder instead of being reduced to tears. The hardest trial she had to face was when the training camp wouldn't let her train on the base, on the account that she was not a male, and at that moment she was deemed to fail on her quest to save the fair prince from the sorcerer, and she decided to use her own sort of sorcery. She snuck into the camp and pretended to be a boy, and quickly she rose in the ranks. No one knew she was a girl, and if they did, she would get hurt. When she was deemed ready to leave, she spent a few years finding the prince's keep. She learned that he was hidden in the woods and gathered up everything she needed for her trip: food, water, and a heavy coat, all piled onto her horse, and she quickly set her course, going into the woods where she could find the prince who had so long ago gone amiss. She rode quickly and labored through snow and sleet, thinking about how soon she would finally meet the lost prince who the kingdom had missed for so long. In fact, he probably didn't even know who he was. He would be so surprised to hear that he was promised a throne once he lived past his 18th year. Asterion would be as old as Wilhelm, who was born at the same time, though a different realm. She rode through the forest, as you know, and toiled through the never-ending snow. On the third day of her journey, she came to the cave in which she was sure was the one she needed to save. She pulled her handkerchief high above her nose and her hat low on her forehead so Shuttler wouldn't know it was her, a girl, coming to save the prince, the act of which made many wince. For fear of being hurt or killed by the evil sorcerer, Marquez Shuttler, she came to the cave and left her horse in the woods behind her, knowing it would stay to take her back home with the others. She drew her sword and walked inside, careful to be quiet with her strides. The whole cave was filled with an eerie green glow, no doubt from the orbs made from potion to make there be light below. It was surprisingly warm when she was inside of the mountain where Marquez Shuttler was known to hide. She crept down the corridors, quiet as a mouse, keeping her footsteps silent as she treaded through the makeshift house. She came to a great room with a fire in the middle, making the snow on her clothes melt off just a little. There was a young man who was about her age tending the fire, who Wilhelm assumed was the one she should call sire. On the side of the dark room opposite from her was a man in green robes, Marquez Shuttler. She moved across the ground, holding her sword up with two hands. The blade gleamed and reflected the light of the fire, attracting the glance of the unknowing sire. His eyes widened when he saw the girl, holding a sword and covered in snow, going toward the red-haired sorcerer. "Master," he called, pointing a finger at Wilhelm, for he knew his master was not his father, who he assumed must have been overwhelmed with a child so young and free, and his mother was dead, or so it seemed. Marquez looked up, his eyes landing on the stranger, dressed in dark clothing that silently screamed danger. "What are you doing here?" Marquez asked, grabbing something to use as a weapon from his bench. "I am here for the prince," Wilhelm replied, wielding her sword and moving closer to the inside of the room, inching along the edge as if trying to disappear. "You've got it all wrong. There's no prince here," the young man cut in. "There's only me, and there's only him, so just put away your sword and have a seat. Surely we've got plenty to eat. You can join us for our supper. We were just about to eat. Weren't we, master?" Marquez answered, "Yes, we were, but don't you see? He's not after you, he's after me, and it wouldn't be safe with a crazy man coming and eating all of our good jam." Wilhelm laughed, keeping her voice low, for she wanted neither of them to know that she was not a man, but a woman instead. She wanted to get inside of their heads. Don't be a liar, Mr. Marquez. You and I both know of what you did. All those years ago, stealing the beloved prince, his name was Assyrian, as is your name, I assume. She looked to the man when she said the last part, who was now holding a broom. He nodded. Yes, that is my name. How did you know? Oh, my dear prince, you've spent so long hidden in the snow. You were captured as a child by the sorcerer. This you must know. I've come to take you home, to retain your birthright, your throne. Assyrian's eyes widened, and he looked to Marquez. He opened his mouth and asked, Is it true, what he says? Marquez glared and nodded. But you are mine now, and they won't be getting you back, not if I can stop this pestering man. Wilhelm laughed. How about a duel? With your magic, you with your magic, I with my sword. Whoever wins shall win the lord. Marquez laughed evilly. You are no match for me, but if that is what you insist, you will be dead and of no harm to me. Wilhelm smiled beneath her scarf. Then so be it. Assyrian moved away, and the two stood on either side of the fire that was lit. Wilhelm raised her sword in Marquez's hands. He summoned balls of energy and threw them at her, energy throwing from his hands. She deflected the energy back with her blade, angling the green beams towards her enemy as they began to fade. They went on fighting like so. Eventually a beam hit the one who had it originally thrown. Marquez clenched at his chest and fell forward into the flames before him in disorder. He let out a yelp before his cloak was engulfed in flames, and then he vanished, the loser of the deadly game. Wilhelm sighed in relief and lowered her sword. She turned to the prince and pulled down her scarf and her hat and her heart sword. His eyes widened. You are a lady, he asked in disbelief. But how can that be? And you did defeat Marquez Schuttler, the sorcerer. Is it true what you said before? I am truly the prince and not a servant for the one who was killed and disappeared into the flame. She nodded, and her hair fell into her face. Wilhelm is my name, my dear prince of mine, she said, and knelt. He smiled and helped her up, holding on to her belt. She took him back home to the castle, where she was appointed to be the head of the men of muscle.